All right, duelists. Let's wrap this one up quick. This deck is so boring. Why are we talking about this deck? Because it's free content, and we got some spicy new support in the Sprites of Miracle Pack. Jules Jump Scare. So I have all the cards laid out here, right? Obviously, this is way more cards than we want to play. There's like, almost 20 cards in the extra deck. There's like 50 cards in the main deck. These are just like all the possible things that I think you could play. At the ratios, you could play up to this many of each one, whatever. But later in the vid, I'm going to cut it down and show you what I would actually play. But I just wanted you to see all the potential options because some of these cards I'm going to cut, especially ones in the extra deck. Anyway, so we're talking about EXOSISTER. This legion of ghost-busting nuns has a few different mechanics at its core. Mostly is a rank 4 spam deck, which is just... I thought we did this in like 2012 already. But anyway, similar to the live twin, they have main deck monsters that want to pair up with another one. So we've got Ellis here and Stella want to be together, and then Irene and Sophia want to be together, and then these are going to make our various extra deck monsters and their Ghostbusters. So they're all caring about the graveyard. Whenever a card is moved out of either graveyard by your opponent, they get to jump into an XYZ summon right then, and then a lot of their extra deck monsters have things that they can only activate if they were XYZ summoned this turn, aka ideally on your opponent's turn, to provide 4 disruptions. Now, why do we care about them now and not, God, 8 or 9 months ago when they first came out? Well, that's because we have Big Sister Martha now. Yeah, that's right. Okay, get your lewds out of the chat. We know. If you control no monsters or only XYZ monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, you can special summon a EXOSISTER Ellis from your deck. So that is already a free rank 4 right there, and we can special summon this when we have no monsters or if we only have XYZ monsters, which are basically our entire extra deck is XYZ monsters, and all our EXOSISTERs are going to be XYZ monsters as well. If a card moves out of either graveyard during the damage step, notably this is not if your opponent moves a card out, it's if just a card moves out, you can special summon from your extra deck an EXOSISTER XYZ monster using this face-up card you control as material. That is essentially the wording on all of the EXOSISTERs gimmicks, except one like Ellis says if your opponent moves a card out of either graveyard, as opposed to just if a card is moved out of either graveyard. All right, so these other main deck monsters have a few things. EXOSISTER Ellis can special from the hand if we have an EXOSISTER. Sophia can special an EXOSISTER from the hand, and then if we have their counterpart, we can gain 800. That's another theme, is 800. This, if you special summon it and you have Stella, you gain 800, and then some of our spell cards we're paying 800. I'm assuming there's some Japanese pun or lore or something like that. Irene allows us to put an EXOSISTER card from her hand in the bottom of the deck to draw a card, and then she cares about Sophia. Then if we have Sophia, we gain 800, and then if we control another EXOSISTER monster, we can draw a card. Then if we have Irene, we gain 800. So that is our main deck monsters. Now, in order to facilitate our EXOSISTER plays, we have a number of spells and traps. EXOSISTER packs, probably the best one during the main phase, but any main phase, because it's a quick effect. We're going to pay 800, which we can easily gain back with our main deck monsters. Add an EXOSISTER card from the deck to the hand. That is any EXOSISTER card, spell, or trap. But if we add a monster, we can special summon if the other EXOSISTER monster mentioned on it is on your field or in your graveyard. So this is a great way to get the other one that we need, as well as get those bonuses and then go into a rank 4 right there. We've got the armament. Once again, we're going to pay 800, target an EXOSISTER monster we control, and then special summon an XYZ EXOSISTER from the extra deck with a different name than the cards you control by using that target as material. So once again, this is just a free way to get into our EXOSISTER XYZ monsters. It's a quick play, so we can do it on our opponent's turn and trigger the effects that they get when it says if they've been summoned this turn, which we'll get to when we get to the extra deck. You'll see what I'm talking about. Also, you can only activate this card during your opponent's turn unless your opponent controls a monster special summoned from the graveyard. Once again, if there's a ghost out, we're going to be busted. EXOSISTER Vadis, once again paying 800. Choose an EXOSISTER monster from your deck, then take another EXOSISTER monster from your deck that's mentioned on that monster, special summon both, but they're shuffled back into the deck during the end phase, and then after this you can only special summon EXOSISTER monsters from the extra deck. Once again, this is a 1-card EXOSISTER XYZ on our opponent's turn when we want to be activating those effects, and it doesn't matter because ideally we will special summon these both out and then have a way to go into the XYZ before they get shuffled back. Otherwise, we can just use this as a block in case our opponent is going to OTK us and we just need bodies. But ideally, we are going to go into one of our Exceeds to get those effects. And then finally, our other new card, EXOSISTER Returnia. If all the monsters we control are Exosisters, you can pay, once again, 800 life points. Notice it needs to be minimum 1. You can't just activate this on an empty board. Target a card your opponent controls, and then in the graveyard and banish it. Then you can apply one of the following effects. Immediately after this effect resolves, Xyz summon an Exosister monster using monster you control. Or if you Xyz summon this turn, banish one card your opponent controls. So a combination of, once again, getting into our Xyz. We can control their graveyard in case they're doing graveyard-centric strategies. That's great if they are going to attempt to get something back with Sprite Elf. And then also this is removal if we have an Xyz monster already on the field. In the extra deck, we're summoning a bunch of rank 4, so that means that we can easily go into Utopic Future and then Utopic Draco Future as necessary. Abyss Dweller is something for consideration. It's nice to just shut off certain decks, as well as once we start getting tier elements, Abyss Dweller is going to be a premier card, and Exosister was acceptable when tier elements was around, at least before they got the Ishizu support. So this is a card that we can consider since we can make 4 so easily. But it's kind of an anti-synergy with the fact that we want our opponent to be moving cards out of the grave. And if they have effects in grave where they might banish out, this will negate them, but it won't allow us to get our quick effect Xyz materials. So it is what it is. Tornado Dragon's just a good one. Baguska obviously is so much fucking fun. All right, let's talk about our Exosisters. The main one's going to be Michaelis. Cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster, special summon from the graveyard. If you control this card that was Xyz summoned this turn by using an Exosister monster as material, you can target a card your opponent controls or in their graveyard and banish it. Now, once again, obviously, this is a quick effect, so if we go into this on our opponent's turn, we can then use it that turn. But we won't be able to use it on our opponent's turn if we special summon this on our turn. That's the whole dealio. You can detach a material from this, add an Exosister spell trap from your deck to your hand. So this is going to be our spell trap searcher as well as our removal, and obviously we have a bunch of good things to search. If we summon this on our turn, we can get something like a Returnia or Vadis, set that, and then be ready to go on our opponent's turn. Caspatel, once again, cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster special summon from the graveyard. All of them have that, so I'm not going to read it anymore. If you have summoned it this turn, neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard for the rest of the turn. You can detach a material from this card and add an Exosister monster from your deck to your hand. So this is going to be our monster searcher. We've got Jabreen. If we control it, we can negate the effects of an effect monster our opponent controls as a quick effect speed. We can also detach and boost all of our Xyz monsters by 800 attack. When we are ready to close out the game, if we have, say, 2 or 3 Xyz monsters on the field, this is a great way to make sure that we have enough damage. This ends up functioning almost like a control deck or like a mid-range deck. Even though it's just continually rank 4 spam, we don't really OTK that much. Even though we can get a rank 4 easily, it's hard for us to swarm the board with several extra deck monsters. A Sophiel, if we summon it this turn, neither player can activate card effects in the graveyard this turn, and we can detach material, target a monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. That's actually super underrated, especially for this being a rare. But yeah, this is a great option to make either turn 2 or turn 3 if we were on the play, just because then we can start bouncing things and playing cleanup, and then start getting in potentially if we have a Jabreen and we want to start boosting up. Lastly, new card. Our final new Exosister card, Exosister's Magnifica. This needs 2 rank 4 Exosister Xyz monsters. They're all rank 4 except for this one. You can make a second attack during each battle phase. Once again, this is a great way for us to start doing a lot of damage. Uncontested, this is 5600, which after a little bit of chip-ins earlier in the game can quickly turn the tides. Once per turn, quick effect, does not need to be summoned on that turn. This is the only one that has this. You can detach a material, but banish a card your opponent controls. If your opponent activates a card or effect, you can return a Xyz monster you own attached to this card to your extra deck, and then special summon that monster from your extra deck using this card you control as material. So essentially, when our opponent does anything, we can tag out whatever is under this, basically do a flip-flop of whatever's under this onto the field and this under it. So we can go back in and get whatever we need in the situation, and since it will have been summoned that turn on our opponent's turn, or even on our turn if our opponent has quick effect speed interaction, we can get what we need, whether that's a searcher, a banish, a boost, a bounce, etc. So just a great way to tag in and out of our Exosisters, since we don't have a ton of recursion in the deck, not many ways to return things from the grave once they've hit there. Lastly, Zeus, of course, in an Xyz deck. All of our EXOSISTERs are spellcasters, so if we do swarm a little bit, we can go Selene into access code as another way to OTK. Like I said in the beginning, these are all the potential options that we could mess around with, but I'm actually going to now break it down to what I would, the 40 or 42 that I would in the proper amount of extra deck. All right, so here's the 42 and 15 that I would run. We cut down on a couple of the EXOSISTER spell traps, as well as cut a few of the tech options out of the extra deck, and we trimmed some of the main deck EXOSISTER monsters. A few other options here, notable things. DD Crow is cool to be able to get things out because that will trigger Martha, as well as a couple of our extra deck monsters. Nibiru and Evenly Matched, I think, are super clutch. Like I said, this kind of is essentially a mid-range-ish deck, control deck, so if we are getting board broke, or if we're going second, those are going to be super important tools, especially in this upcoming format. Other than that, not much more to say. The general game plan is if you have Martha, open Martha, make Michaelis, start searching things. You're probably going to want a Returnia, but you might want a Pax depending on what's in your hand, and then essentially set up whatever other things you can do. If you get an armament, you can go into one of your other ones if you have a third EXOSISTER monster, but not enough to completely make 2 rank 4s. But otherwise, it's just kind of play control using what you have, swap in and out of your monsters using Magnifica, and then just beat down until you can get a sort of OTK. Like, we can't really present 8,000 damage just super easily. A lot of times it's going to take 2 or 3 turns of attacking before we can actually make it through. But anyway, this is EXOSISTER. We got the new cards that make this a semi-viable deck, even though I would say Sprite is still tier 1, tier 0. This is a deck that you can now play, whereas for a long time you couldn't. In my opinion, though, I had some of these from beforehand from pulling, and then I got some from pulling the Sprites of Miracle pack, but I had played some games without Martha back in the fall, and this deck is like, it's fine, but it's just so boring. It's just another rank 4 spam deck, and there's just other ones that I like more, like Utopia, or even Suship, at least because it's memey. But you know, Yu-Gi-Oh players, they love their lesbians. So here's EXOSISTER. This is how I would play it, and we will see you in the next one.